In Hearthstone, there are so many annoying cards that are just constantly 1 second.
What? Won't you just go away?
These are the most annoying Hearthstone cards. So one for every class. Death Knights haven't hit their terrible 2s yet, so we're lucky and they don't have a standout annoying card. All of their cards are just annoying. Cards like Patchwork are just hard to play against and there isn't much counterplay against it. You just gotta hope your opponent doesn't draw the card or doesn't eat your win condition. Alexandra's Mograine speeds up the timer of your imminent death, so that's always annoying. But you as a human need to realize that you're going to die one day, so if anything, it's a good reminder to like and subscribe so you make the most out of your day. But if there is one card with a history of just sucking to go against, it's Froststorm's Fury pre-rune update. Before, Death Knights could discover 3 rune cards whenever they discover a card, but this was changed to only being able to discover a card with a maximum of 2 runes, largely due to this card's existence. The card doesn't look good at first. It's basically Fireland's Portal, but it does 1 less damage and summons a slightly smaller statted minion for a trade-off of freezing the board. But you gotta remember that this card came out in the Path of Arthas miniset, meaning that everyone who bought that miniset, or in other words, everyone who played the game, had access to this specific card. Adding to this, the aggro deck of Frosted Death Knight put at least 2 copies of these in their decks. Then add the clause of being able to discover this in your card pool. It was possible to play 4 or 5 of these in a row starting on turn 5. If your opponent did this, you were just stuck with a frozen board while being smacked with a bunch of 5/5s. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending if you ask someone who hates fun, like me, the 3 rune limit was added, making this card less of an annoyance. But for a good time there, Froststorm's Fury was causing people to hate Death Knights. When Demon Hunter was a mere baby in Hearthstone classes, they did what babies do best. Take whatever life energy you had and sucked it away. They were an extremely good aggro class, with their default deck being somewhat viable. You know, the one on the left side of the screen that you ignore when you make a deck? Yeah, that one was good. This was due to a few really annoying cheap cards. First, there was Twin Slice, which effectively is a 2-mana deal 4, which doesn't sound like much today, but in the ashes of Outlands expansion in 2020, it was pretty devastating. This paired with Kane's Sun Fury, which just ignored taunt minions, allowed for some cheesy and annoying wins. But if we're talking about the most annoying card, Mana Burn has to be it. Mana Burn can effectively make your first 4 turns useless against a Demon Hunter. You would rarely play this on turn 1, as it's likely that your opponent just doesn't have anything to play on turn 1. But on every other turn, turn 2, you can't play a minion to contest the board. Turn 3? Well, if you didn't have anything to play with 1 mana before, how do you like being at 1 mana again? You have a turn 4 board clear? Well, I guess I'll just delay that turn and get some good damage in before you can actually clear my board. I hope you didn't want to play the game today, because if your opponent plays Mana Burn, you just can't play the game anymore. If I could put an entire class of annoying cards, it would be Druid cards. But since I can only put 1, you already know what that card is. What? No, it's not Guff. I have gone on record multiple times saying that I really despise Wildheart Guff. But is it annoying? Not exactly, it's just a really good card. But what is annoying is a card also paired with Guff. Topior the Shrubagazer. Topior allows for druids to have access to something they rarely have access to: board removal. And not only that, they have access to it while filling their own board. Whenever you cast a nature spell, Topior conscripts a wealth to be unalive for the sovereignty of the motherland. All you have to do is survive until turn 7 and play this card. Actually, it's druid, you probably have to wait until turn 5, honestly. But just get 7 mana, boom, plop it on. And it doesn't help that Innervate is also a nature spell, so you can play that immediately after playing this thing. After this card is played, Druid can regularly go from an empty board to filling it as long as they cast their spells. They are practically just getting a bunch of 3/3s for free. I hope you're not playing a minion-based deck, because if you are, this Druid card will absolutely destroy you. And there is nothing you can do about it. You know, there was a version of this list that had 3 United in Stormwind questlines on it. Is that still the case? Make a prediction in the comments to prove your superiority, because you guessed a prediction right, and don't edit it because I know you're cheating. I know some of you will do that. Here is questline number 1, Defend the Dwarven District. Hunter is usually straightforward and fair enough to not have any annoying cards, but this questline makes it so the best way to win is to not play a minion at all. The questline basically reads that when you play enough spells, your hero power becomes bah, bah, bah. Since most of the Hunter spells are best used against a minion, the counterplay is to just not play a minion. If you're a minion-based aggro or mid-range deck, what do? Whenever you play a minion, it is just instantly removed, but also made your opponent 1 questline tick closer to becoming an American. So far, this is the only card on the list that has been directly nerfed. Before, the questline only required 2 spells to be activated on its first tick, but now it's 3. This, along with the nerfed Dragon Bane shot from 2 to 3 mana, made this deck pretty useless. When you get punished for just playing a minion, the game becomes so unfun to play. And that combined with how long it actually took for the hunters to do their hero power spell, it took so long. Just watch this.
Dragon Bane, get it back. This to the face. Okay, that's 3. Refresh. And then 1 albedo. Oh my gosh. Wait, no, do I have lethal?
Oh, I have lethal! Let's go! Let's go! I sound like a fetus in that clip. What the heck?
Do you hate losing? Even if you are losing, do you hate your opponent having fun? Well, if that's the case, I got a card for you. With the all-new Iceblock, not only can you stop yourself from losing, you can stop yourself from having friends. It's simple. All you have to do is play a secret and wabam! You've delayed the game for another turn. That's not enough for you? Well, you can run 2 Iceblocks in your deck. But that's not all. Not only can you play 2 Iceblocks from your deck, but you can also discover this card from your other spells. For just the simple price of your dignity, you can play Iceblock today.
Out of all the cards so far, Iceblock is the only one that has been removed from the game. But now it's in the legacy set, meaning that you can still play it. But what makes it even more annoying is that you might need to craft it again if you've already had it before it's shifted to the Hall of Fame, because who knows actually, some people just reported having to recraft the card. Thank you, AAA company. You can already see why this card is annoying. Playing this card 4 turns in a row just to ODK your opponent is just not fun to go against. I know some of you will say, oh, just run Eater of Secrets or whatever secret removal. Who is gonna do that? Like, come on, why would you run a specific tech card just to win against a very specific deck? Haha, yeah.
Do you hate losing? Even if you hate losing, do you hate your opponent having fun? Well, if that's the case, I got a card for you. With the all-new Lightforge K-Reel.
So imagine Iceblock, but on the turn it's played, it deals 2 damage to your entire board, while also giving your opponent a weapon that they can attack with on that turn that cannot be destroyed. Remember when I said you would play a specific tuck card just to counter a deck? Well, there was a time when Lightforge K-Reel was a beast in the meta, so much so that people would just run weapon removal to deal with this stupid weapon. This card used to cost 7 mana. If you're playing any sort of minion-based deck, you pretty much lose on the spot when this card is played. What's worse is that this card scales in strength depending on how strong your minions are. If you're playing smaller statted minions, then your minions just get removed by the board effect. If you're playing bigger minions, then the damage cut in half due to the weapon effect is just way worse, because 8 being cut to 4 is obviously a lot more damage lost than 3 being cut to 2. When paladins play this card, it is pretty much an instant win for them against many decks. And if it's not, then you can just stack up the hero power on Mr. Smite and then you have an OTK. Many regard Priest as the most annoying class as a whole, but surprisingly, there are a few very specific annoying cards that are particularly annoying. Except for Mindrender Lucio. She's special. There's just something particularly annoying about cards that you have no counterplay around, and a Lucia is just that. The current text reads, battle cry, replace your hand with a copy of your opponent's until the end of turn, which honestly is really bad. Whoa, what the heck happened to my model? But before this current text, the card was vastly different. First, this card used to cost 2 mana, which gives you more mana to play your opponent's trash cards. But the most important change was its pre-nerf text. Battle cry, swap hands and decks with your opponent until your next turn. So not only do you switch everything with your opponent, you are free to do whatever you want with their cards until your next turn. Not your opponent's. Your opponent has to play with your hand on their next turn. This has so many implications. If your hand was empty, you could just give your opponent nothing to work with. But the biggest and most annoying implication is when you are playing your opponent's win conditions out of their own hand. If your opponent's holding onto a combo, you just swap hands and that combo is gone. This basically means you win the game by playing a 3 mana card. It's pretty obvious why this card was changed, but in its tenure, it was probably the most annoying priest card in existence. A truly honorable thing for all priest cards. The great thing about rogues is that all of their cards are bullshit, so I could really just name a random card and it'd probably make sense to put on this list. Okay, wait, let's actually try this. Okay, gave me a really high number, now to scroll, and hey, would you look at that? Mild levels of bullshit. Listen, I'm not a wild player because my brain's too small for that. But even when I hear that King's Bane is a problem, I know something's up. Like that one ex you just can't seem to get rid of. Okay, wait a second. Hearthstone players don't get into relationships. Like that one itch you can't get rid of, King's Bane always comes back. It doesn't look like that strong of a card on the surface, but let's see what enchantments you can give King's Bane. Poisonous, lifesteal, card draw, immune while attacking, lots of attack, Not only that, you also have ways to reliably draw King's Bane and remove the board using its damage dealing effects, which you gotta remember will either have poisonous or lifesteal. Also, you can't die from fatigue if you have King's Bane. You just rogue hero power after you attack, and then the King's Bane gets shoveled straight back into your deck. Going back to cards that cause people to play very specific counter cards to, Cobalt Sticky Fingers. You play this and you just steal King's Bane and instant win. You know when people are forced to play Sticky Fingers, then the card is super annoying to go against. Like, come on, this card sucks against over half the roster and people are putting it in just to win against King's Bane and maybe Cariel and Wild, but don't worry about that part. It's just a super annoying card and you can't even get rid of it. You know, no card so far has fundamentally changed how the game is coded yet. But here's Shudderwalk, with the trophy of having a voice line that no one understands.
My jaws that bite, my claws that catch.
Seriously, what does it say? We've had cards that play cards that you've already played in the game before, so what makes this card super annoying compared to the others? Well, unlike cards like Test Greymane, which just play cards from other classes, Shudderwalk can be copied into your hand after it's played using Zola the Gorgon. This by itself isn't the bad thing, but what makes the card actually unbearable to play against is that the card animation just takes so long. How long, you may ask? So long that it literally skips your opponent's turn. How did it do this? Well, you got Glacial Shard to freeze your opponent's board, Life Drinker to suck your opponent off, and Serenite Chain Gang to keep copying the Shudderwalks. And these are just 3 of the main suspects. So it is possible to lose by having your turn skipped just because there were too many animations. They eventually limited the Battlecry activations to a maximum of 30, but this card is still viable in Wild as more Battlecries are added. Basically, if a Battlecry minion is added to the game, Shudderwalk can and will adapt to the meta again. It just does not go away. For Warlocks, I have to choose which child I hated more, Tickus or the Demon Seed. They both suck, but if we were talking about what is annoying, it has to be Tickus. What Tickus basically does is give you a 1 in 5 chance of instantly winning the game on the turn it is played whenever you play against another control deck. If your opponent just so happens to have their win condition in their deck the turn it is played, you just win. What's worse is that with Yashirash the Filer, you can play this thing twice in a game. You can remove 1/3 of your opponent's deck just with this card. I hope you don't like playing your cards because that's what this card does. Yeah, it's a slow card, so if you're going against an aggro deck, it's just useless. But that doesn't mean it's not annoying in every other scenario. I think Tickus is the most contentious card on this list so far because some people have been arguing about how good this card really is. Even the Hearthstone devs are defending this card. Like, some people argue that this is another instant win card, while others argue that you're just really bad at the game if you lose to it. I already know I'm bad at the game, so I complain anyways. Losing because your opponent played one card that you couldn't do anything against, it's just annoying to go against. Warriors had the exact opposite problem as Warlock because instead of having obvious candidates to choose from, what the heck do I choose? I could go with Tickus 2.0 over here in Boom Boss, the Boom Boss, but this card hasn't annoyed me as much as Tickus, so I'm calling favorites. Plus, this card is way slower than Tickus, so I can hold my vendetta even further. I could also go with Odin Prime Designate because of the ridiculous amount of damage it can pull off, but I think it's more of an Ignis the Eternal Flame problem than an Odin problem. So I decided to represent all of you duels players out here by saying that the Bomb is the most annoying warrior card. For all of you saying that's a cop-out, the Bomb comes from the warrior class in Rattlegore and it's generated by warrior cards, so if anything, it's a warrior offspring card. What the Bomb does is place a hot potato in your deck. Excuse me, people are knocking up my... It's a bomb! With bombs, the normally happy action of drawing cards becomes way more stressful as you don't know if you're going to explode or not. After bombs are placed in your opponent's deck, you can just sit back and relax as your game is on easy mode now. But with all of these annoying cards, do all of the classes just become easier to play? Well, I ranked every Hearthstone class from easiest to hardest, so you can get mad at me for calling your favorite Hearthstone class no skill and easy to play. Subscribe for more Hearthstone content, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you around.